Everybody loves a good plot twist. There's nothing quite like being genuinely surprised by a clever, creative, climactic reveal that totally reframes how you see the entire movie forevermore. At their best, plot twists ensure you're desperate to watch the film again as soon as possible and see how the experience differs when viewed from a new perspective, but sadly not all twists can boast quite that level of propulsive surprise. Sometimes the filmmakers just don't appreciate how smart viewers are and how quickly they can figure things out for themselves, in turn leading to a deflatingly obvious reveal later on. I'm Cy for Whatculture.com and these are 10 movie plot twists everyone guessed.
If you're looking to lose some weight in 2025, then the good folks over at Hims are here to help with access to weight loss treatment plans that will start the journey to achieve your goals. Now, this isn't simply a case of taking a supplement or medication and waiting for results. No, this is a lifestyle change. If prescribed, you'll have access to their app with curated content that will help you with nutrition, movement, and sleep, along with weight and habit trackers to help you progress and build healthy routines. Look, as someone who really does pride himself on trying to stay fit and just keep my weight down in general, that is the most important part of all of this. Building those sustainable habits over the long term will help you keep on track and hit those goals. Hims will support your journey with personalised dosages and plan adjustments tailored to your goals. And on top of this, you'll have unlimited access to licensed medical providers who specialise in weight loss and ongoing check-ins to support your progress. There are no membership fees or hidden costs and no insurance required here, just transparent pricing with a range of options and plan lengths. Oral medication kits start as low as $69 per month with a 10-month plan paid up front. Compound GLP-1 injections start from $165 per month with a 12-month plan paid up front. So start your assessment now at the link in the description and begin your weight loss journey today.
Number 10. Evelyn Deor is Screenslaver, Incredibles 2. Incredibles 2 was a largely worthy belated sequel, though perhaps the single most common complaint was that its big rug pull was just way too predictable, even for a film aimed primarily at children. The movie's primary mystery concerned the identity of the villainous Screenslaver, with the audience led to suspect either businessman fanboy Winston Deor or his sister Evelyn. Though the film tries to convince you it's more likely to be Winston, given Disney's tireless reliance on bait-and-switch twist villains and the fact that Evelyn's full name is Evelyn Deor, as in Evil Endeavour, it wasn't that hard to figure out she was in fact the Screenslaver. And while it certainly doesn't sink the movie's third act, it did prove mildly disappointing that Brad Bird couldn't come up with a more subversive or interesting villain reveal than this. Is it just me, or does Disney desperately need to give their twist villains a rest? Number 9. Jim Gordon faked his own death, The Dark Knight. Christopher Nolan is generally extremely clever with how the trailers for his movies are cut, ensuring not to show too much or risk allowing more observant viewers to figure things out ahead of time. But Nolan, or more likely Warner Brothers' marketing department, did rather screw the pooch when it came to what would have otherwise been a genuinely surprising mid-film twist in The Dark Knight. Halfway through the superhero epic, Commissioner Gordon is seemingly shot and killed as part of the Joker's latest diabolical plot. And for a solid 20 minutes, it seems like Gordon is genuinely dead, until of course he re-emerges to apprehend the Joker, having faked his own demise. But for anyone who was paying much attention to the trailers, and many fans were, they probably remembered seeing footage of Gordon in scenes after the Joker had been captured, so how could he possibly be dead? Though it's becoming increasingly commonplace for filmmakers to tinker around with trailer footage in an attempt to prevent audiences from figuring out major spoilers, back in 2008 this wasn't so much a thing. And so for anyone with the trailer's imagery fresh in their mind, they knew that Gordon would be popping back up soon enough. Number 8. Detective Shank is the new Jigsaw, Spiral. The Saw franchise is defined by nothing more than the expectedly ridiculous, mind-melting plot twists which cap off every single entry into the series. Spiral, the filmmakers served up a massively deflating, thunderously predictable final shock that longtime fans of the series easily figured out. Spiral's narrative sees a mysterious new Jigsaw copycat using police officers as his new test subjects, one of whom ends up being protagonist Detective Zeke Banks' partner William Shank. But we only ever see the aftermath of Shank's ordeal, with the cops discovering his skinned corpse, at which point Banks ventures off to track down the new Jigsaw by himself. Yet of course the copycat is revealed to be none other than Shank himself, who faked his own death in order to operate under the perfect cover of anonymity. But given that Saw is entirely about seeing victims brutalised in gnarly traps, and we never saw Shank being skinned, it made a lot of sense that he wasn't really dead. After all, isn't it convenient that Shank's apparent corpse was skinned and therefore deprived of all its identifying features? 9 movies into the series, this just wasn't clever enough to outsmart most Saw fans who saw it coming a mile away and were left hugely underwhelmed as a result. Number 7. The pizza guy wasn't the sniper. Phone booth. 20 years on, Phone Booth remains a tight, terrifically crafted little thriller in which New Yorker Stu Shepard is held hostage inside of a phone booth by a caller who has a sniper rifle trained on him. At the film's climax, a SWAT team bursts into the apparent sniper's apartment and finds that he has fatally slashed his own wrists. When the corpse is removed from the building, it's revealed that the sniper was seemingly a pizza delivery guy who previously had an altercation with Stu in the street. But of course, anyone actually paying attention knows that the sniper was voiced by Kiefer Sutherland, whose distinctive vocal tenor is incredibly recognisable, especially given that his TV show 24 was huge at the time of Phone Booth's release. Plus, during the pizza guy's brief scene earlier, he sure as hell didn't sound anything like Kiefer Sutherland. And so it wasn't remotely surprising when the real sniper revealed himself moments later, warning Stu to keep himself honest before disappearing into the New York City bustle. The end. It's still a wonderfully fun little flick, yet the attempt to deliver an added final sting didn't really work unless you were only half watching the movie. Number 6. The grandparents are imposters. The Visit. M. Night Shyamalan's The Visit was broadly well received by critics and audiences who lauded the director for not getting too nutty with his expected plot twist and instead opting for something more simple, satisfying, and yes, predictable. As it turns out, the movie isn't simply about 2 children facing off against their mentally ill grandparents. Rather, it turns out that the people they believe to be their Nana and Pop-Pop are actually escaped mental patients who murdered the kids' real grandparents and have since posed as them. Given that it's made clear from the jump that the kids haven't met their grandparents before and their mother Loretta conveniently heads off on a cruise with her boyfriend while they visit Nana and Pop-Pop, it doesn't take a genius to figure out where things are going. It would be too straightforward for the grandparents to simply be mentally ill, so Shyamalan of course went the extra mile and had them be unhinged imposters instead. Number 5. Michael Kills Karen. Halloween Kills. It was widely known before the release of Halloween Kills that it would be a middle chapter into a trilogy of Halloween movies directed by David Gordon Green. As such, nobody was expecting much in the way of a resolution, and once Green referred to the movie as the serious take on The Empire Strikes Back, it became incredibly obvious how things would turn out. Given that The Empire Strikes Back is basically the textbook example of a trilogy's dark middle chapter that ends with a downbeat cliffhanger to set up the finale, it didn't take much reading between the lines to see how Halloween Kills would wrap up. What could possibly make more sense than ending the movie with Michael Myers killing somebody extremely close to Laurie Strode, namely her daughter Karen? Lo and behold, that's exactly what happens at the end of the film, with Michael getting the drop on Karen and brutally stabbing her to death while Laurie is in the hospital. It certainly sets the stage for a vengeance-filled finale and Halloween Ends, even if it was also extremely predictable. Number 4. Mysterio is a villain. Spider-Man Far From Home. Though even the most casual-minded comic book fan knows that Mysterio is one of Spider-Man's most iconic foes, the marketing for Spider-Man Far From Home did a fantastic job of trying to persuade everyone this wouldn't be the case in the MCU. Trailers painted Quentin Beck, aka Mysterio, as an honest-to-God superhero from the multiverse who would team up with Spider-Man and basically fill the cool uncle void left by Tony Stark's death. For the first half of the film, there isn't really any hint at all that Beck is anything other than a hero, and given the MCU's history of reimagining comic book characters, it wouldn't have been all that surprising if Mysterio was indeed reworked into a heroic character. But comic book fans knew better that Kevin Feige couldn't resist the urge to cast Jake Gyllenhaal in the role of a deliciously villainous version of Mysterio in line with his depiction in the source material. And so when he finally revealed his true colours halfway through the film, it was a twist that only the most ultra-casual superhero movie fan with little knowledge of the comics could have possibly been fooled by. Number 3. It's a simulation. Don't worry, darling. While the marketing initially presented Olivia Wilde's psychological thriller as a Stepford Wives-inspired romp, it eventually owes just as much to The Matrix. Late in the third act, it's revealed that the idyllic focal town of Victory, California is a virtual simulation created by the town's malevolent founder Frank to basically enslave women. The problem though is that Wilde drops the big reveal so damn late into the movie, roughly 20 minutes from the end in fact, that the audience has been given far too much time to ponder the narrative's various possibilities and figure out what's going on. It doesn't help that the movie bashes the audience over the head with a bevy of unsubtle visual metaphors, perhaps most memorably that housewife Alice finds a carton of hollow eggs in her home, as in empty shells, get it? By the time the film stops jerking viewers around and reveals what's up, a good deal of them have already cottoned on to the basic idea, assuming they still cared at all, of course. Number 2. The escape pod switcheroo. Life. Though Life wasn't revealed to be a secret Venom prequel at the end as many hoped it would be, it did nevertheless conclude with a sneaky twist, albeit one which honestly seemed like a foregone conclusion. In the climax, Dr. David Jordan agrees to lure the murderous alien lifeform Calvin into an escape pod he's inside with the intent of piloting it into the deep reaches of space, ensuring it can't reach Earth. Meanwhile, the incident's other survivor, Dr. Miranda North, will pilot the other pod back to their home planet. But as the pods head off in their disparate trajectories, they're hit by debris and sent in opposite directions, resulting in Miranda hurtling into deep space while David and Calvin crash land in Vietnam, where they're saved by a group of fishermen. Basically, Calvin's probably going to take over the world. Yet, the last-minute switcheroo is such a wildly overused trope at this point, especially in the horror genre, that it was hilariously easy to see this one coming. Number 1. Mort is a killer, shooter isn't real. Secret Window. The Johnny Depp starring Stephen King adaptation Secret Window isn't bad by any means, but it does falter in the final stretch when unfurling a big reveal that's effectively the most basic, obvious, and unimaginative twist the story could have sprung for. The plot revolves around author Mort Rainey, who retreats to his cabin getaway following the breakdown of his marriage, at which point he becomes depressed and afflicted by writer's block. Things get worse when a man, John Shooter, shows up at Mort's cabin and claims that he plagiarized one of his short stories. But really everything you need to know is laid out from the outset. Isn't it conceivable that a man whose personal and professional lives have crumbled has, well, lost his mind? And that's exactly what we eventually learn. Mort is suffering from dissociative identity disorder, and as such Shooter isn't a real person but a figment of his imagination, created to help him do things he can't bring himself to do. In this case, that means murdering his wife and her new lover.